trends such as inflation and CD dollar differentials, among others. The regulators also take the opportunity to announce new interventions being put in place for cocoa farmers, such as free spraying, free fertilizer, and rehabilitation. However, the cocoa farmers say they remain the poorest within the value chain in spite of the numerous promises from government. Today, we have in the studio here representative of the Ghana Society, Civil Society Cocoa Platform to tell us more about their issue. Welcome to our studio, sir. Mr. Obed, you're also the co-convener, right? So generally, how is the situation of cocoa production in Ghana?
Well, to assess the situation of the state of cocoa in Ghana, you will look at some indicators. So now let's look at the farmer as the most important indicator within the cocoa supply chain. What is the life of the cocoa farmer? I'm a Kumasi boy, so I always want to use Kumasi as an example. When you look at in those days, when you want to monitor or measure the impact of cocoa, you go to Kumasi and realize that most of the big houses were owned by cocoa farmers. But now, another cocoa farmer cannot even afford to rent a room, even in Kumasi or Accra or wherever that they are staying. So that should tell you about the state of the cocoa sector. Again, you can also look at the indicator of borrowing. Not too long ago, I think the former president did make some remarks about the indebtedness of the cocoa board, and all those issues goes to show the state of the cocoa sector in Ghana.
So then, initially, cocoa farmers were the richest, but today, why are they worse off then?
Good point. So there are several factors that is accounting for this. Let's start with pricing. So for over 30 years, cocoa prices kept going down on the international market. It used to be around $4,000 per ton. It came all the way to around $1,800 to $2,000 per ton. Now it is appreciating a bit. As at yesterday, it was around $3,100 per ton. But that is not it. You also look at the state in which we live in, Ghana. Look at the value of $1 4 years ago and the value of $1 today.
Yeah.
Look at the inflation and the situation. So all these goes to affect the value of the money that cocoa farmers make.
So are you telling me that when negotiation is ongoing, you don't play a role? I mean, the farmers don't play a role. They don't have a say in negotiation?
Legally and policy-wise, there is a producer price review committee, which is the PPRC, which has been set up by government to review cocoa prices. There is a farmer representative, but you also need to understand who is the farmer representative on the committee. Mostly the farmer representative is from Cocoa Share. Past national best cocoa farmers come together to form associations. So it is these people that represent farmers. What we have realized is that there is no feedback mechanism between those who are representing farmers at the committee level and the farmers themselves. So technically, the farmers who will sell their beans to government have no say in how prices are determined. They are represented by somebody who is handpicked by government, who doesn't feed back to the cocoa farmers.
So if I'm getting you right, are you telling me that the cocoa farmers don't have an association? It's just the best farmers who come closer by themselves and then form an association? Is that what you're telling me?
So for Cocoa Board has started supporting farmers to organize. And I don't want to get into the politics of it, but for a very long time, government has been very afraid of cocoa farmers. Imagine there are over 2 million cocoa farmers in the country. If they all organize, they unionize, and they begin to push, it could create a lot of issues. So cocoa farmers' fronts have been broken for a very long time. And it's now that with support from civil society and other chocolate companies, they are now beginning to form cooperatives. So in each community, farmers between 30 to 50 are coming together to form cooperatives in the communities. The vision is that over the years, we will in years to come, we will put all of them together and have Cocoa Farmers Union. I must say that they are represented on GAU, so GAU and other unions do advocate the interests of farmers, but cocoa farmers specifically do not have a unionized platform or a group that can represent themselves. The best representation they have in government is through the Cocoa Share and the National Best Cocoa Farmers Association.
Yes, okay. Then let's look at the issue of legislation and tax regulation. What are your concerns about that?
That is one of the major problems we have in the cocoa sector. We are being governed by a law that was passed, the PNDC Law 81, that was passed somewhere in 1983-84, And 40 years down the line, we are still working with this law. Look at how widely the market has changed. How we used to sell our cocoa beans, we don't sell it like that anymore. Now we have moved into the futures market. We used to have the terminal market and the futures market. Ghana sells in the futures market. So we sell our cocoa beans in advance of the cropping of the year. And because of the kind of archaicness of the law and the law not being reformed for a very long time, we are still lacking behind. For example, COCOBOD is still setting the cocoa price for the whole year. Let me give an example. When we began the cocoa season last time round, the cocoa price for Ghana was 800 cedis per bag. And it was better. It was almost better than that of Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast were around 815 cedis. But now, Ivory Coast, they are selling their cocoa beans at 1,350 Ghana cedis equivalent. Okay. Whilst Ghana remains to sell our cocoa at 800. Let's look at Togo. Togo is selling at 1,500 Ghana cedis equivalent. So what has happened is that for some time now, farmers in Ghana, those who are in those border towns, have begun to smuggle their cocoa beans into the neighboring countries. COCOBOD knows this, and we had a meeting with COCOBOD, and they did tell us that these are some of the problems they are having. Why is this happening? Because probably as a country, we have not taken notice of the changing trends in the marketing structure, and we have not kind of gravitated towards what is happening. We need to begin to reorient and reform our laws and get the farmer at the center of the conversation. That is the way forward.
So then, with all these challenges that you've outlined here this afternoon, what do you think is the way forward?
There are several opportunities that are emerging. For example, the EU, the European Union, has passed a regulation, the EU Deforestation Regulation, that is creating an opportunity for producer countries like Ghana to begin to look internally at our policies and laws and look at how we retool or realign our laws to meet some of these international best practices. The EU and other markets are saying that Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire give us a sustainable cocoa. If you're able to demonstrate that you are producing sustainably, we will pay you a correct price. So now the responsibility is on Ghana to begin to reorient our laws, realign our policies, and see how we can deliver sustainable cocoa to the market to get the best price that our farmers deserve.
I need a little bit education on this sustainable cocoa. I know they come back to the various communities to give with some social intervention programs. Do you, is this still existing?
Yeah, so those are the sustainability programs done by the chocolate companies. That is not sustainable cocoa. Sustainable cocoa production, it means that your cocoa should be child labor free, it should be deforestation free, and it should also be produced in alignment with best practices. So use of agrochemicals, there are certain agrochemicals that are not permitted to be used. You need to make sure that you are not using all those things to meet the best standards of sustainability production.
Are there any other concern before you go?
Yes.
What is the message then?
Yeah, we're saying that in the next 4 or 5 months, the next cocoa season will begin.
Yeah.
And we know that COCOBOD has started going to the money market to look for money to buy cocoa in the coming season. Farmers deserve to be paid right. Right now, what they are paying farmers is not even meeting their productivity cost. So we are entreating government to sit with cocoa farmers to look at the data, the empirical data, look at how much it costs a farmer to produce a bag of cocoa, and then do the mathematics and pay them right. One of the other things that the government can also do is to go to the private sector. The issue is, I share in the problems of COCOBOD. They can only give to farmers what they get, and they get the money from the money market or from the international market. And for now, the market is not paying correct prices for the cocoa. They need to engage the market. They have shown that the market has shown that they can pay more. For example, there is a chocolate company, Tony Chocolonely. They are paying almost 60% more than the market is paying. It means that they can pay.
Yeah.
So government needs to engage them. Government needs to negotiate. On top of the market price, they need to get more for the cocoa farmer. Without that, cocoa farmers will convert their farms into oil palm. I have seen it in the Western region. They are converting their farmlands, cocoa farmlands, into oil palm, into rubber. You go to Ashanti region and Western regions, they are selling it to the Galamsey operators. So you go and cocoa farm 2 acres, 5 acres, 6 acres has been sold to the illegal miners, and they are destroying them. If we are not careful, and if COCOBOD doesn't set up, cocoa that has become the backbone of Ghana's economy for so many years will go off, and the 3.5% that GDP that cocoa contributes, we are going to lose that. So it is incumbent on government to look at how they maintain the market and also help the farmer. If the farmer is not happy, then we will not get the cocoa beans that we need.
Being someone who engages the grassroots, have you thought of going on the table again to, engage COCOBOD to see how best to solve this whole issue?
That is the solution. That is what we have been advocating for. Under the auspices of the European Union in Ghana, they organized the Sustainable Cocoa Dialogues. COCOBOD was there, private sector were there, civil society, with some farmer representatives. And we began talking about these issues. But the process didn't go to a conclusion. It terminated at a point. What we are saying is that the solution to the problems in the cocoa sector is through a multi-stakeholder engagement. So COCOBOD
before you get there, you couldn't sustain the negotiations. Did you go back again on the table? Did you press on that? Sometimes as Ghanaians, we need some push.
I understand, but we as civil society and farmers, we are not the conveners of these platforms. It is government, COCOBOD and the EU that were the conveners. So it's us, and when they convene, that we also come to the table. So it's the convening authorities that didn't follow through. We are saying that is how we solve the problem. If government thinks they can solve the problem by themselves, that is not true. Private sector cannot do it alone. You need the farmers, you need civil society and government to sit together, identify the problems, and see how we can resolve it. So that's what we are calling for. And we have begun the engagement. We have begun going to all these offices and prompting them that is the solution to the problems within the sector.
Thank you so much, Mr. Obed Owusu Adai, for your time.
Thank you for having me.